Oh, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. In addition to Jeremiah Nelson's presentation today about authentic leadership, the title of the book is Why Should Anyone Be Led by You? We'd like to let you know that we have internship presentations this Thursday at this room, same time, 11. And again, next Tuesday. Remember that juniors and seniors need 4 such credits to be eligible for graduation. Jeremiah has agreed to do this presentation on very, very short notice. So we want to particularly give him a pat on the back for being so cooperative and helping us out. Authentic leadership is the most current theme in leadership, so many of you will see this only through this presentation. And one final point is that Jeremiah is a McNair Scholar, and Dr. Klein is here to do the presentation, and I'd like to thank him for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Fazio, and Dr. Klein for showing up. Again, the book is Why Should Anyone Be Led by You? The authors here are Rob Goffey and Gareth Jones. They wrote the book in 2006. This is what it takes to be an authentic leader. A little background on the authors. Robert Goffey and both Gareth Jones, they both teach at the London School of Business. Rob Goffey himself is an internationally respected teacher and facilitator. He is also a faculty director for the Executive Education Committee at the London School of Business. He has also taught executives from some of the world's top companies such as Unilever, Nestle, and Sony. He also consults for the Financial Times Stock Exchange, which is the big stock exchange in the United Kingdom. Gareth Jones, also another professor at the London School of Business. He is also a visiting professor at the INSEAD, Fontainebleau, and as well as IE Business School, which is the Instituto de Empresa, which is in Madrid, Spain. A little bit about Gareth. Gareth is one of Europe's leading speakers. He is a consultant. He's also a business consultant. He's worked for such things as Polygram Records, if any of you are familiar with that. It's one of the largest recording companies in the United Kingdom. He also does consulting for businesses like pharmaceutical companies, as well as professional services and firms. It's a little presentation outline. Most of you should have the outline as well as the slides that Mr. Fazio has passed out here. Just by a show of hands, if you look at these remarks here, how many of you would agree with some of these statements? Nobody? The thing is that these things, everyone can be a leader. Leaders deliver business results, and people who get to the top are leaders, and leaders are great coaches, are all myths about leadership. Everyone can be a leader. Not everyone necessarily wants to be a leader. Some people prefer their personal lives over being a leader. They prefer to go to work the 40 hours, go back home. They don't necessarily want to be someone who leads. Leaders deliver business results. It's not always true. Sometimes your management, your office supervisors, your shift supervisors, your section supervisors, people like that are great leaders, you don't need a person at the top to lead all of them. People who get to the top are leaders. Leaders have followers. Just as I said a moment ago, they're all over the organization. Leaders are great coaches. You can't assume that just because a person can inspire, that they can impart technical skills too. That's too time consuming. For example, you can take someone like Steve Jobs. Even though a very smart man, very technically minded, he couldn't teach every single person that worked for him the skills that they needed. Therefore, he shared with them vision rather than technical skills. What does authentic leadership look like? This is lost my place here. From Robert Terry, out of his book, Authentic Leadership. Seem to have lost one of my pages here. Sorry, guys. Authenticity is knowing and acting on what is true and real inside yourself, your team, and your organization, and knowing and acting on what is true and real in the world. I like this quote. This is out of one of his most recent books. It's not enough to walk one's talk if one's headed off or leading in one's organization or community or the nation off a cliff. So what does it look like? This here is done out of the Nordhaus Publishing, one of the leadership books Mr. Fazio had given to me. This is a diagram on leadership theory, or authentic leadership theory. These first two are factors. These first two factors determine how you handle critical life events. And then you have the four components. Those four components are also known as positive psychological attributes. They form the acronym of CHORE, which is confidence, hope, optimism, and resilience. Of course, confidence is the belief in yourself, the belief that you can accomplish whatever it is that you set out to do. Hope and optimism are very similar. One is the belief in a positive outcome that this will happen, and the optimism is more or less a possible or a good positive outcome in any given situation will happen. Resilience, and I'm sure plenty of you are familiar with that, is your ability to deal with an adverse situation or tribulations. One of the second factors is what they call moral reasoning. I'm sure some of you face this from day to day. Little angel on one side, a little devil on the other. But it's your capacity to make your decisions, whether they be right or wrong. And they allowed a leader to be selfless and to allow them to make judgments that are good for the community, the group, or the organization. Critical life events. Those are very important. As far as critical life events are concerned, if most of you can think of any that can happen to you, can any of you name a positive life event that can happen to you? Anybody? What's a good positive life event?
Getting married.
Getting married. Good one. Anybody else? Graduating. All right. Very good. Of course, all of these are good positive life events. The promotion or being hired on as a job, of course, birth of a child, marriage. Hopefully the marriage comes before the birth of a child. Not always does that happen, but hopefully that does happen. Can be a religious experience. You're winning the lottery or graduation from college. You also have negative life events. The opposite of marriage, possibly divorce, or you get fired from a job, they let you go. Can be the death of a child or older loved one, a mother or father. Maybe you're diagnosed with cancer. But the first two that I spoke of, the first two factors, these determine on how you handle these critical life events in your life. The components of leadership are self-awareness, internalized moral perspective. These are the first two that I'm pointing out. This is a process by which you understand yourself, knowing what your strengths, what your weaknesses are, what you're good at, what you're bad at. Your internalized moral perspective, that's your standards or values. Maybe those are religious values. Maybe those are ingrained from your parents, just depending on where you get those from. And not allowing other people to influence you, standing your ground. Nobody can force you to do anything you don't want to do. I remember back in the 80s, Nancy Reagan had that "just say no," and that's pretty much the truth. Nobody can force you to take drugs, to take the first drink, or to do anything that you don't really want to do. Second two components are balanced processing. This is how you analyze information objectively. Sometimes when someone tells you something or says, maybe there's a better way to do this, it's how you handle that information and how you carry on from there. Relational transparency is being open and honest, presenting your true self to others. Again, that's showing all your flaws, all your weaknesses, all your positive attributes. The next here, this leadership wheel, or the authentic leadership wheel, was done by Bill George. Bill George recognizes 5 characteristics. Of course, these are pretty obvious right here in the middle. They're heart, purpose, values, relationships, and self-discipline. Bill George is also the author of True North, which is a leadership book as well. Your heart leads to the compassion that you have for others. The purpose is the passion with which you pursue things. Values is the behavior that you have, your values, your morals. Relationships determine how you connect with other people. And again, your self-discipline is a consistency in all those areas. For this, I've also compiled or brought up a couple of videos with Bill George when he spoke at Stanford University. I'd like to play those for you now, and hopefully this will work. Yep, they got our IT up, so.
touch with those people. The only way to do it is to stay in touch. I mean, at Medtronic, we all ate in the same cafeteria together. We'd go and just sit down at a table and go, be in touch, wander through the labs, go out and work with your salespeople and drive up and down here, go see that customer out in Northern California that hates you. Be in touch with the people doing the work. We have way too much administration, too many layers. You should never have fewer than about 15 people working for you. The idea of this layering, we gotta get rid of all these detailed layers of administration and put the emphasis on the people doing the work, the innovators, the quality people, the people that know how to serve a customer, the people that can build a business in a country. Those are the people that and so, yeah, it takes a lot of travel. I travel all over the world all the time. But you gotta be in touch with people. And you're always talking about the mission and values. You sound like a broken record, but you never stop talking about this. Because that's where people, that's what they resonate. You get to their hearts, their passion, love the campus setting for companies. We try to do it at Medtronic, made the company out here have it. You go to New York, you see them all in these skyscrapers. They don't even talk to the person on one floor below them. So they get too caught up in sitting in a boardroom looking at numbers, and they lose sight of the essence of the business. I can tell you the people I know are down on the trading floors in finance, and they're Bob Ulrich, CEO of Target, for 14 years. He been in two dozen stores a week. Howard Schultz does the same thing at Starbucks. You got to be out there with the troops. I think that's the only way you can really know the business. If you lose sight of it, that's why Howard recognized Starbucks was losing it, and he went back into full-time leadership because he saw they were getting too bureaucratic, getting away from it, and the company was going down the drain.
Second video here is being liked versus being respected.
Yeah, this is a classic Machiavellian question, right? Should I be liked or respected? I'll tell you, you have to make hard decisions. Don't make decisions just on being liked, okay? But I think you want to be likable. You want to be kind and thoughtful to people, and that's how you get the most out of it. But you have to make hard decisions. Sometimes you have to terminate people that work for your company for a long time. Sometimes you're doing them a favor because they're in the wrong job. So you have to make those hard calls. And I think in the end, if you do that with humanity, caring, in the end you will be respected and you'll get the results. And so I think these are very tough. If you lean too heavy to the being liked, you'll avoid conflict. And in the end, you won't have any of its respect because you didn't make the hard calls. So business is about hard decisions, and there's no way you can be in business and not have to make hard calls. But if you duck them or you start doing them for what makes you look good, particularly to the media, that's the sure sign that you're about ready to go down the drain. And you see people get caught up on a Donald Trump type figure. It's all about them. And when that happens, sell the stock.
Change organization.
Change the world.
In Bill George's book, True North, when he talks about your true direction, one of his favorite quotes, or one of my favorite quotes out of that book is, the hardest person you'll ever have to lead is yourself. That's never a truer statement. I mean, I know it sounds kind of silly or, makes common sense, but, as I said earlier, no one can force you to do anything that you don't want to do. You have to lead yourself sometimes out of trouble or sometimes as just a leader, leading yourself into taking the lead. But he identifies these 5 characteristics in the book. A leader understands their purpose. They have strong values about the right thing to do. They can establish trusting relationships with others. They demonstrate self-discipline and act on their values. And my favorite, leaders are passionate about their mission. Goffey and Jones identify in another article leading up to the book that I'm speaking on today. And in that, they identify 3 tenets of leadership. It is relational, something you do with people, not to them. People in your organization, they want to follow a leader, not a title, not an agent of the organization. Leadership is non-hierarchical. It is also contextual. What you inherit or what you inhabit is your starting point. When you come into an organization, not all organizations are on the brink of bankruptcy. Some of them or have been led very well. Sometimes people step down or they take another position at another company in order to focus, or maybe they take time to focus on their family. So when you come into an organization as a leader, it's not always in the brink of destruction. So whatever happened in the past, you have to leave that in the past, and you have to take and own whatever it is. You can't say, I'll blame it on this person, I blame it on that person. If it's at a bad point, or if it's on a decline, you need to slow down that decline. Or if it's hit its rock bottom, then you need to pull out of that. As well as when it's doing well, if it's having a nice steady increase, you need to maintain that steady increase. They also, in this same article, identify 4 qualities of leadership. Revealing your weakness, selectively showing your weakness. Now, you don't want to show a fatal flaw. For an example, if you're a financial director at a company and explain to someone that you don't understand discounted cash flows, maybe a little late in the game for something like that, because that's something that's pretty important as far as being a financial director. Becoming a sensor, you rely on your intuition. This is probably one of the harder ones because it comes through experience, not necessarily anything that can be learned. That's walking into a room and being able to see the expressions on people's faces, whether they're engaged or not, maybe seeing different inflections in the tone of their voice, their facial expressions and the gesticulations of their body when they move their hands or do something that can tell you. Even their posture can be something that can be sensed. Practicing tough empathy is probably another hard one, because sometimes it means showing tough love or letting people go. Not everyone's in for the same vision that you are. Again, not all people want to be leaders. Not all people want to see the company go forward. They want to show up every day and be there for work. They don't care necessarily what goes on there. They just want to come in and do their job. And sometimes those people have to be let go. Dare to be different. Capitalize on what is unique about you. If I say the name like Donald Trump, what is the one unique thing that you would think about him? Anybody? His hair. Okay. Yeah. Anything else? Pardon? You're fired. That's one of his favorite catchphrases. Another one say his intent gaze when he looks at somebody, and he's got that, that look when he's looking at somebody. But capitalize on what is unique about you. I'm sure all of you here back in high school, for guys as well as girls, you maybe had that special shirt or pair of pants that when you showed up, people were like, man, he looks sharp. Or, man, she looks good. She looks really nice in that skirt. Might be a certain cologne. Or it might have been out there on the dance floor when you did those certain moves and attracted that certain lady. That was something that was unique about you. Or vice versa for the girl. She gets out there dancing. She's a good dancer. That's unique about her. So that's, capitalize on what's unique about you. I'm not saying get up here and do a dance in front of your organization or anything like that, but capitalize on what's unique about you. Being yourself with more skill. Showing consistency between word and deed just means do what you say you're going to do. Don't say something and then change your mind. Don't act differently in front of one group than you would another. Don't go into your budget committee and act one way and then go into your marketing team and act another way. You want to be the same because people recognize that. People talk in between themselves. Be comfortable with yourself. Know your flaws. If you're more familiar with your flaws, it's a lot better for you. Lastly of all, you must want to be a leader. Not everyone wants to be a leader. Works is not the most important thing in your life. Knowing and showing yourself. Colleagues and potential followers have a basic need. They want to be led by a person, again, as I said earlier, not as a title or an agent. This one's pretty important. It's keeping open lines of communication. If any of you have ever been a boss or a manager any place, you're familiar with getting phone calls in the middle of the night or possibly in the middle of the day. The key thing, and this was kind of interesting, or one of the analogies out of the book that they gave, one of the gentlemen that ran an organization, he had over 15,000 employees that worked for him. And each one of those employees had his email address. Now, he might not always be in the office, but he always tried to return those emails. And that shows that you actually care about those people. So, regardless whether it's returning a text, a phone call or an email, make sure that you return that and show people that you care. Do what works for you. What are the differences that attract people to you? As I said earlier, what is unique? What is unique about you? Anybody here have something unique about them? Nobody wants to share that? No? Okay. Broadcast leadership, not arrogance or cockiness. This creates separation when you broadcast this arrogance. Even though people may think that they can come to you, they probably won't. Think or plan ahead. Think before you speak. I'm sure your parents have probably ingrained this into all of you before. Said think before you act or think before you speak. This is fairly important. Another example out of the book was they talked about a gentleman who was the head of a corporation, and as he was meeting with one of the authors, and the author asked him a question, and said the guy looked at him really intently. He stood up, walked over to the window, stood at the window, looked out the window, came back, sat across from him before he answered that question. It showed that he really cared what that person was saying and wanted to make sure that he gave him a correct answer. And again, that communicates to that person that you actually care about what it is that they have to say. Listening to learn. Keep the strategy simple and get feedback. Remain unbiased. Don't, when you have a strategy, now you may have an overarching purpose for something that you're trying to accomplish there at the business, but you don't always have the perfect plan. You should listen to others. They may have something that can, streamline that process. Taking personal risk. This can be a hard one. What are taking personal risk? You can care about your cause. Show your passion about what it is that your organization does. By caring about your cause, you can share that in a couple different ways. One of the examples might be is if you're walking through an office. One day, maybe some of you will be a boss or a leader somewhere in your organization. You're walking through the office and you see a piece of trash on the floor. You reach down to pick it up to put it in the trash. People see that. You have a mail clerk that's going through there carrying a huge load and he's getting ready to drop a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe you run over there and grab that to help him, to stop him from dropping that. That's showing that you care about those people. A lot of people will see that. Showing your foibles. What do you care about? Whether it's possibly third world countries, maybe you care about the environment. You'd like your organization to be green. Why should leaders take these risks? In the famous words of Aretha Franklin, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, it gains respect from others. Knowing your weaknesses, owning your weaknesses. If I were to say a name like Bill Clinton, what would you say probably his weakness was? Anybody? Women. Yeah. As well as JFK. JFK was another one. He had Marilyn Monroe. Bill Clinton had Monica Lewinsky, if y'all remember that. But he wasn't, even though you remember those things, you also know that these guys were also great leaders. They were not just, that moment did not define them. We did not throw them aside just because they made these mistakes. Personal risks are inevitable, and their revelation and sharing those revelations of your weakness can be helpful. One of the gentlemen that's mentioned here in the book, and I've got to make sure that I've got the name correct, Bobby Robson of Newcastle United. He is a coach for Newcastle United, an English soccer team. One of the things that he has a problem with is that he can't remember people's names. He's terrible at remembering people's names. I'm guilty of that myself. And one of the things that, instead of letting that define him or being scared about that, because most people might worry that people would point those things out or say something behind the back. Instead, he owns that weakness. He stands up and he kind of makes fun of it, or he takes it jokingly. So, they actually carry on a repertoire of making fun of it, but not in a bad way. They find it kind of funny that, he can't remember if your name's Bobby, Tommy, Susie, Joey, whatever your name is. What is to be gained? This allows people to focus more on your strength. No one's perfect. This actually authenticates you. Communicating with care. Using the right mode of communication. Some of us, we're better one-on-one communicators. Some of us small groups, and some of us large scale. Some of us don't mind doing the large scale. Choose a channel. You might have a prepared speech that's written out with a prompter, a teleprompter in front of you, and that's the way you like to deliver your addresses. Or maybe sometimes you like to speak off the cuff. This is also known as a street corner or a soapbox speech. Developing a leadership narrative. Not everyone is necessarily persuaded or change their mind just because you have a lot of data and evidence that goes along with what it is you're trying to promote in the organization. So you need to construct a narrative or tell a convincing story. These messages or these analogies will transfer emotion or persuade a person to do something. These can be experiences from childhood, past work experiences, but doing this connects with the person and gets them engaged. Managing your social distance. This is another tough one. Effective leaders can invoke emotional response, loyalty, or affection from their followers. How do you do this? Use tough love. You invent or create distance. Excuse me. Gareth Jones, one of the authors of this book, gives an example, and he worked for Polygram Records. Rick Dobbs, who was the CEO at the time, had spoken with Gareth and had asked him to have certain recording contracts ready on a certain day. Well, it was 2 days after that, and Gareth had still not finished all of those recording contracts. So Rick Dobbs calls him in the morning. This is 2 days afterwards. Even though these guys were great friends, you know, they're both executives in this company. When he calls them, Gareth knew that this was not going to be a friendship call. He says, "Where are these recording contracts?" Or, "I need to see you in my office." When he gets to the office, of course, it's when he asks him, and he, straightforward, pulling no punches, and hiding nothing, says, "You know, where are these recording contracts? You said that you'd have them 2 days ago." Of course, he says, "I'll have them for you by lunch." So what does he do? He turns around, goes back to his office, and he has them to him by lunchtime. Another example here is as shared in this story as well, as another company, as they're expanding their business enterprise, they have two gentlemen who are working on a marketing plan. Well, it's near the holidays, and they throw this big Christmas party. Well, everyone else had done all of their jobs. The business plan and everything else had been finished, but the marketing plan had not been finished. And two of the executives show up to this Christmas party, there to have a good time, and the CEO comes up to them and say, "Hey guys, where's this marketing plan? You're supposed to have this ready way back when." "Oh," he says, "well, we thought it was okay." You know, basically they're thinking it's okay to be there because it's a time of holidays. He says, "I want this done. We need to get this finished." So what do? They leave the party. That's creating the tough love. It's not necessarily saying you're not their friend. It's just saying, do what you're going to, or do what you said you were going to do. Managing social distance. I'm sure all of us have maybe had this happen to us right here. Anybody had that happen to them? It's that awkward moment when you go for a handshake and someone else goes for a hug, and it just feels, you're like, don't know where to go with that one. Minding the gap, being close but not too close, and friendship versus leadership. There are risks of getting this wrong, being too close too soon. For an example, if you're an MBA and you go out there and you're getting ready to become an executive in this company, and you take all of your supervisors or leaders out to a bar one night. One of the examples in the book discloses that, says that this guy says he takes all these people out to a bar one night to try to establish that camaraderie. And when he goes to establish this and they're all out there drinking, he becomes very chummy with a few. Well, the following day he finds out that one of the guys that he became very friendly with is getting kickbacks from customers. It makes it a little bit harder to go and be kind of, to reprimand that person. when closeness is premature, it'd be kind of like coming into, if you had a substitute teacher that you'd never met before and they walk into the room and they're just all like, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Not that you necessarily won't expect them to do something like that, but if they come in acting like your friend, it makes you very standoffish or nervous about who they are. Failing to recognize accountability is one of those things when you become too friendly with the associates or too friendly, minding that gap right there where you need to be. And because of that friendliness, you might say, oh, well, it's okay. You don't have the marketing plan ready. You don't have those recording contracts ready. Just get them to me when you can. That may be possible at certain times, but not necessarily all the time. Also, being too distant. Again, this creates an air of arrogance and causes separation, even though people think that, or even though you may tell people to come to you, they probably won't because you're too distant. Pushing it too far. You've probably known people like this that say, this is the way it's going to be. It's got to be my plan or no way. And they're too close-minded. Remain authentic, but conform enough. Read the organization. As I mentioned before, this is about organizational context, being able to read people's facial expressions, their gesticulations. Balancing sociability and solidarity. Get along with employees at all levels. This encourages togetherness during hard times. One of the greatest examples of this is kind of running a business sort of like you would a great family. For example, if any of you all have seen the movie The Godfather. He was nice when he needed to be, and he was firm when he needed to be. Not that that's how you need to run a business, so. Establish and maintain traction. Traction is an important thing, just as the same as if any of you have been over here to the fitness center and you get on a treadmill. I don't know of many people that will walk over that treadmill, run it up to 10 or 12 miles an hour, and then hop on it to try to catch on running, because what's going to happen is you're going to fall if you try to do that. Instead, you get on the treadmill and you build up to that speed. So you want to maintain your traction. That's a less chance of you losing. So, one of the other areas identified in the book by Jones and Goffey is the quadraphenic cultures. These are communal cultures, cultures that have high sociability and high solidarity. For example, would be high-performance organizations, places like Google, Ben & Jerry's, Apple, people that pay attention to their employees. Networked cultures. The problem with networked cultures is they tend to create cliques, individual groups. They say a lot of stuff, but their action's very low. Another area of culture is mercenary culture. That's everybody out for themselves. I win and you lose. And also the fragmented culture. Fragmented culture is similar to where you see corporations that do outsourcing or possibly home-based businesses. This creates a lot of secretiveness. And secretiveness, outsourcing companies, sometimes they don't exactly tell what's going on where they're at. They might try to hide this from people. So you got to look out for these cultures that are developing. Some are good, like communal, and some are bad, like the fragmented cultures. Tom Berry also did a subsequent article with Jones and Goffey, and which he shared how to achieve desired results, and he gave the case assessment. In the case assessment, things that you want to look at to achieve desired results are things like community, where employees are valued, you have a strong team identity, authenticity, your actions align with your values, you show up consistently and appropriately with what it is that you do. Be more than a title or a role. I think that's been emphasized a couple of times in here. Significance. Ask for input. Don't just tell people how things are going to go. Say, this is the way I think things should go. What do you think? Provide your feedback to your team. If you have a couple of teams, maybe two's doing good, one over here is not doing so well. Provide that feedback to them. Hey, I think you could be doing just a little better. Excitement. That comes along with passion, showing your passion about what it is that you're doing. The excitement, that can be through demonstrating your knowledge of the industry that you're involved in. Also, When somebody does something great, your team does something great. You see that a lot of times here at Concord when they announce when certain teams, I think most recently one of the pre-law teams had went to a competition and came fourth in the nation, which, I mean, that's awesome that you give accolades for people like that. If you'll notice on the handout, one of the handouts I gave you is an evaluation of leadership. And in there you have 4 different types of leader: your maverick, your effective leaders, your inauthentic role players, and the unaware and the clumsy. If you notice on A, this could be someone who's closed-minded or has a tunnel vision. Excuse me. B is where we really want to be. It's a person who shows their skills and authenticity and being themselves, and that they combine to produce this authentic, effective leader. C, they're a little bit different. They're maybe the type of person that would use your ideas as their own. People feel exploited when you do things like that. They feel like they've been manipulated. If you come up with an idea and then 2 days later the leader stands up and shares your idea and said, "The other day I was just thinking about this," and you're thinking, "That's my idea. I was the one that came up with that." Probably the worst of these is the D, the unaware and the clumsy. We all may know people like this, possibly somebody that just not aware of what they're saying, sometimes come across as brash or rude. And for an example, I don't know if any of you are familiar with The Office. I prepared a video here. Any of you watch The Office? David Brent, y'all familiar with David Brent? This is an example of a D-type leader, someone who's unaware and clumsy.
Managing a Premiership football club is very much like running a successful paper merchant. Yeah, a lot of similarities. Here, I have to pick the right team. Yeah? I have to lead by example. Yeah? I have to instill trust, discipline. Sometimes we have a game of football at the back, so similar there. A manager's role at this point in the proceedings has never been so important. The players are picked, yeah? They've done the physical, they're tuned to perfection. Are they ready mentally? Yeah? Yeah? Are they in the right frame of mind to do the job? The will to win, that's where we come in. Yeah? Motivation, confidence. Yeah? And that's from the goalkeepers to the goal scorers. You know, you've got to be boosting them. Mr. Seaman, you are the best goalkeeper in the world. No, you're not playing today, but, you know, no, your hair doesn't look stupid. Of course, moustaches are still fashionable in the north. Yeah? Jukanovic, chill out. How do you know they're bullying you? Yes, it hurts more when it's your own team, but, you know, boosting them. My PE teacher, Mr. Morris, was who, you know, got me into football because of his inspirational management technique. He was fair but firm, you know, and unorthodox, sure. If you forgot your football kit, he didn't make you play in your underpants. He thought pants were unhygienic. No, he made you play with nothing on your bottom half. You know, but fair, he was not a hypocrite. He imposed the same rules on himself when he forgot his kit. He was a bit scattered. He forgot his kit every week. So he was, oh. The greatest thing about football, I think, is that it is for everyone. You know, it's not just for men. And anyone who says it is just for men is a sexist, which I hate. So, you know, women can watch football too. A lot of players are very attractive, though not to me, I'm not, but you know, to women. You know, for everyone. And if there's two teams that reflect the diversity of our society, it's Chelsea and Arsenal. You know, black, white, young, old, straight, gay, all in the... See, I don't think there's any gays in the team, but... Really? That's so much to me. There's a couple of guys in the studio now that prove my point. Do you think that Alan Hansen or Mark Lawrenson would have had the careers they had if they'd have had the skills, but without the discipline, without the concentration? It's not easy passing the ball back to the goalkeeper every single time you get it for 90 minutes. They got up the game before they changed the back pass rule. So one step ahead, you know.
In conclusion, there are a few takeaways I'd like you to take away from this presentation. That is, effective leadership is about authenticity and skill. And a few things for you to think about are where you've been, where you are now, where do you want to be, what do you need to work on to get there. Authentic leaders are not imitations. You can never duplicate somebody. You can't look at somebody and say, I'm going to do exactly what they did, and then I'm going to get the same results. Because even though you do exactly what they do, you may get different results. The only thing I encourage you to do is to be you. Well, there we go. Be you and be original. Thank you for coming to my presentation.